but what you don't know is what it took for me to get here. As a kid, I was molested and abused. I think that's normal because you don't really know anything different. It's just your circumstances. But I found myself just sitting in the car, just thinking to myself, they'll be better off if I'm gone. I put it to my head and I pulled the trigger and the gun misfired.
Oh my gosh. For many reasons.
Many divine reasons.
You were not successful.
I made everybody laugh. I was the life of the party. They didn't see me crying myself to sleep every night. If I have the power to create the mess of a life that I hate, how much more power do I have if I really started living like I give a damn?
And to love yourself, you have to know yourself. And to know yourself, you have to forgive yourself. To forgive yourself, you got to go through the hard shit.
You have already overcome 100% of the things you thought you wouldn't overcome. And if you could struggle through the pain to even still get to this point, imagine how powerful you really are.
Well, Princeton, for the first time ever, speechless. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Heather Godby experience. We've had a little name change, and I'm so excited to drop this change on a very special day. I told my team that I do not want to know anything about this next guest. I just want them to have a story. I know nothing about you, sir. I don't even know your name. So I'm Heather officially. And
I'm
you
Princeton.
Princeton.
Yes.
I knew it was unique. I love that. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Princeton. All right. So I guess let's just start out with, Andy. Andy's part of my team. And she requested that you come on to this episode for several reasons, but one of them is because you're very deep and you are very, what's your story? I can't even go off of anything but that.
Well, I'll kind of give you a brief synopsis. So right now, I'll kind of give you where I am and then beginning of the journey. But I've been a speaker and a coach for over 20 years, going on 23 years now, and have a bachelor's in biblical studies, Eastern religion.
Wow.
Was a pastor for about 5 years, studied meditation, taught meditation for 5.5 years. But fast forward, I've worked with some of the best in the industry. I worked for Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi as a mastery coach. And it's just been a beautiful journey. I'm a creative. I did photography, videography, graphic design, websites, all that stuff. I'm a multi-potentialite, I guess you could say. But
I really like that. Can I steal that?
100%.
Okay, it's mine now.
100%. Yeah, so a lot of times people meet me now and I always say, the version of me now that's so loving, so connective, but what you don't know is what it took for me to get here. And so rewinding, and I hope guests don't mind, I'm a little out, my voice is a little weird today, but we're gonna tough it out today. But starting out as a kid, I was molested and abused as a kid.
Whoa.
I was abused mentally, physically, verbally, and emotionally. I was molested between the ages of 9 and 11. And for most of my early life, you think that's normal because you don't really know anything different. It's just your circumstances. And didn't really realize what was happening until about the age 16, watching a talk show at my grandmother's house. And there was someone on there, a guest on the show, that was sharing his story, and it was almost identical to mine.
Okay, pause for just a second because this is all new to me. And my first thought is, because I've had moments like that, nothing like what you're describing, but I've had moments where it hits you and it's like an aha moment of your world kind of changes in a way because the old world is so different from what you thought it was.
Right.
What was that like for you being 16 and you're still going through all these other changes? A 16-year-old, that's a very confusing time. What was that like for you to understand that not only was your reality different, but it's almost devastatingly different?
Well, for me, I guess I reached a point where when I came to the realization, or aha, as you put it, it was the first time that I can remember knowing rage. For the first time, I remember my face getting hot, my ears getting hot, my entire body just heating up. And it was just waves of heat coming off of my body. And I was just sitting in it. And my eyes started to water. And I just carried it with me, and I became very angry. I learned very early, in my life to wear masks because I didn't, it's your family. Like, how do I come out and say, hey, this has happened? Or how do you even start that conversation, especially coming from a big Southern family? Everybody's close. and then you wonder, is it going to tear the family apart if this comes out or how it comes out? And, if I voice my opinion, will it really matter? I never felt like I had a voice anyway. And so I compartmentalized a lot of it. And I was that person that I made everybody laugh. I was the life of the party,
Always.
But nobody knew. Like they didn't see me crying myself to sleep every night. And it was challenging because growing up, excuse me, in that era, it was a lot of heavy masculinity, like be strong, be tough, not healthy masculinity, heavy masculinity. Just be strong, be tough, boys don't cry, and as I got older, I realized why that was culturally, why that was happening. But it was hard because I felt like I was alone in the world for a long time. And I had sports, I was a tremendous track athlete. And so it really helped a lot because it helped take my mind off of things. And I found something that I could call mine. And I think that's what a lot of people do. It kind of became a coping mechanism because you never really deal with the problem in those situations, right?
Wow, I already have like 142 questions for you. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, I'm just like, oh, I want to ask you this, and I ask you this. Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have an older sister that's 4 years older than me and a younger sister that's 6 years younger than me.
Okay, so not only were you, I was also brought up in the time of masculine, men need to be masculine. And even children in general had to kind of grow up harder, harsher, more independent. But I don't want to say independent in a good way, like independent in you're not going to eat if you don't cook your own meal.
Right.
And it wasn't as bad as that, but definitely a different era of less babysitting, and you are more in charge of your, if you want to go have fun, well, at least for me, I grew up in a very small town. I would go, so we would go, play in the creek bed, and that was our day.
Yeah.
And, it just is so different. So I understand what you're saying of like, not only coming out, you would be or feel that you are the responsible party to bring the reality not only to something that you're having to absorb and understand yourself, but then to bring that into the family. And you're strong enough because you're actually going through it. But what does that mean for the people that maybe you feel responsible for, the people you love? That's incredible. That's a lot. And being the only boy.
Yeah.
And your parents were married?
Yeah, they were. I mean, they had, like any family back then, arguments, fights and stuff. But they've worked through it all. And I'd say, that's a testament to me. And I'm so grateful because of them, I see relationships differently because I saw them work through so much. My dad and I, we didn't have a great relationship for a long time because, it was just considered tough love back then, not abuse, and I didn't understand a lot of things when I was young when it came to my father. And, we mended a lot of that after my life changed. And, we're like best friends now. And a lot of healing is taking place. And, even letting things go and talking to the people, that I felt this way about or towards, a lot of that is, well, I would say all of it has been healed, really. Like, I feel like I'm so grateful for everything that's happened to me because I wouldn't be who I am. Like, I'm so in love with my life. I'm so in love with what I get to do.
I love this because you are embodying who I feel I am right now. And it took me forever to get here. I didn't even know I was that person. I just knew I didn't like thinking about past memories.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot through this journey because I was going to write a book. And then I started doing that and I would freeze up because I didn't like going to my past. And I realized it really has nothing to do with, say, the way I was raised by my mom and dad. It really had to do with who I was and seeing the pain around me being caused. But now you're in front of me and we haven't even gotten close to unwrapping the story.
So many layers.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I don't want to interrupt this too much, but okay, at 16, you're realizing, wow, this is not common.
Like I felt violated, like my life wasn't mine. Like the people who were supposed to love me the most were the people who hurt me the most. Because again, it was, as far as like the abuse, you didn't see it as abuse. It was just tough love, spare the rod, spoil the child. Growing up, Southern Baptist, Bible Belt, like that was just
Wow.
how we were raised. And so it's not, when I look back on it now, it's like they only knew what they knew, and it's like judging a child for falling falling over and over again when they're just learning how to walk, or
Yeah.
judging a blind person because they're bumping into everything but they can't see. When I
Yeah.
think back to those experiences, or with any experience that I have now, like it's very hard to get me upset. It's very hard to get me angry because it's like, okay, like you're either conscious or you're unconscious. If you make a very unconscious decision, I'm not going to judge you. It's more of like, Jesus, forgive them for they know not what they do, and I move on. I can love you from a distance.
I swear the strongest always prevail. And it's strong in the sense of taking what you've been through and using it for good, choosing love over hate.
Yeah.
And I find that successful over people that may have been through maybe similar things, not as bad or maybe even worse, but they take it as an excuse to hurt others. And I've never understood that, because those feelings to me, being mad, angry, fearful, right now it's repelling to me. I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want people around me that are dealing with that. But I have a sense of empathy and patience for that, because I've been through that. And some people don't. Much like you, I think I've learned a lot of lessons earlier on in life.
Yeah.
And I mean, it just never stops, really. But I think there comes a plateau of where this version of a healed, where you're working it out, you're understanding what has happened. Again, I don't even know what has happened to you quite yet, in its entirety. But I love hearing that I can relate to you here. And it's hard when you don't have a whole lot, especially being a creative. You said you're a creative. And a lot of our emotions, some people write to get their emotions out. Some people, they play sports, they do whatever. Creative minds and bodies, you really got to get it out, whether it's music, artist, talking. I'm a communicator.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, I figured as much. So this is your therapy. In a sense, it's also helping.
Right. And also, I think I didn't really have a lot of creative outlets when I was younger, even processing through a lot of it, because I was also on medication for ADD, ADHD, hyperactivity from first grade all the way up till 8th grade. And I stopped taking it because I realized I had the epiphany. I didn't understand the full scope of it yet, but I had this epiphany. I don't have a problem. I have a gift. And it was because I was sitting in my aunt, she taught my pre-algebra class. I'm sitting in class. I'm sideways in the desk. And my friend Mike sat behind me, and so we're like talking in between. I'm drawing a picture on the desk and kind of humming to myself. And she calls me out for disrupting the class, and she tries to embarrass me. She calls me up to the board to answer the question that she was teaching on. I answered the question, and I showed the class a faster way to do it to get the same answer. She wrote up a referral and sent me to the office, and I was sitting in the office, and I was just thinking about, how people would say things like, you're not smart, or you're this or you're that, you get bad grades. And I'm like, I don't have a problem. I have a gift. And it didn't really dawn on me until years later, after my life changed at the age of 23, that's really what it is. Like I have the ability to see and tap into multiple things at once, but I'm growing and living in this linear system where they're trying to program us to be this way or be this way when I'm a multidimensional being. And so there's so much I can
You're
go
like
into
my
that.
twin. What the heck, Andy? What the heck is this all about? Like
Andy knew. She was like,
yes.
This is going to be a great conversation. She was like, I can't wait for you guys to talk. But
it's like when you find your like crew, the ones that totally understand, you like just know, you're like, oh, because I normally have to explain this to people, and I get a lot of dead stares. And I, even when I stop talking, they're still staring at me. I'm like, are you still processing what I said? Am I like a crazy person? Okay, I'm a crazy person. Okay, that's fine. But yeah, I get a lot of the stares of like, okay, that's where I'm at. But anyways.
Yeah, so depression really hit me hard in high school. I barely ended up graduating high school. My grades dropped. I could have had D1 scholarships, running track and everything. And it really started in the 11th grade when there was just this huge decline. My mom was cleaning my room one day and she found a journal I used to keep where I would write all the different ways to kill myself. And her and my dad sat down and they talked to me, and they took me to see like a therapist or whatever, a psychiatrist or whatever. They put me on medication. I remember, I'll never forget these little green pills. I remember getting home and I would look at them in the cabinet. I took them for maybe 4 days and I hated it because it reminded me of when I used to have to take the medication for ADD, ADHD. I felt like a zombie. And I knew then, I was like, why am I even taking this? It's not going to change what happened. It's not going to change how I feel about what happened. It's only going to shut down my ability to feel it.
That's incredible.
I was like, I'm not taking it. So I stopped taking it. And long story short, I ended up graduating high school. I ended up gang-related activities. I've seen things most people only see on TV, like shootouts. I've seen people shot right next to me. Like I was an alcoholic before the age of 23. I would drink until I threw up blood sometimes. And
at 23?
Well, before, I was an alcoholic before the age of 21, excuse me. And then I got married to my high school sweetheart at the age of 21. She was 19. But there was a lot there too with us, just trauma bond. I won't get into that too much, but it just created a lot of turmoil in both of our lives. And we had, I guess, fast forward 3 years, you know, everything just kind of came to a head, and I found myself sitting in my car. We had 2 kids, one on the way, but I found myself just sitting in the car, just thinking to myself, they'll be better off if I'm gone. I'm just tired. You know, I'm done.
Tired.
And I had my gun in the seat next to me, and I was just thinking my kids will be better, my family will be better when I'm gone, like the world will be better when I'm gone. And I was like, I finally get to rest. And I tell people all the time, because I used to be the type of person that would say, oh, the people who take their life, they're so selfish. They're so selfish. But after being in that experience, it was like I really thought everyone would be better. I didn't see it as being selfish. Like, I was just tired. I'm ready to rest. They'll be better. They won't have to worry about me, because for many of them, I was the problem. And so I was like, all right, I'm just going to get rid of the problem. And so sitting there, I took my gun out of the seat. I put it to my head and I pulled the trigger and the gun misfired.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? So you went to do.
Yeah. Click.
And for many reasons.
Yeah.
Let's cross out some and say for many reasons.
Many divine reasons.
You were not successful.
Mm-hmm.
I also tried to take my life, but very different. So they always say that men will, if it is going to be something like that, that would be the way they choose to do it.
Yeah.
Women, not so much, because it's a little messier for,
Mhm.
but I mean, not to go into that, but
We just want it quick.
yeah, I know what you're saying about being tired. I
Mhm.
relate to that. I never thought I was the problem. I just was tired.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the feelings, the depression. And I also was put on medication. I think it was in high school. I was on it for about probably less than a week. And I didn't want to be on it either.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't give it enough chance. But so it misfired.
Yeah.
Go into that.
So after the gun misfired, you know, I shared the experience earlier, you know, my face got hot, my ears got hot, how when I realized I had been violated or whatever. And so it happened again, but this time it was like my whole body felt like it was vibrating. And I'm sitting in my car, I started sweating, but during that time, I don't know how long I sat in my car that night. All I remember is it really was like my entire life flashed before my eyes, but it's not like people think, like a movie playing. I can't even put that into words, what that experience was like, but I remember feeling this. I couldn't articulate it this way then, but it was like this message soulfully just came to me, and it was, you're not where you are because of what happened to you. You're where you are because of how you chose to respond to it. And it was just like this kind of like waves in my chest. And I remember thinking to myself, if I have the power to create the mess of a life that I hate, how much more power do I have if I really started living like I give a damn? like if I really started living like from this moment, every breath I breathe is a gift because it is. And, it's easy for people to say tomorrow's not promised, every day's a gift. But for me in that moment, in that however long I was sitting in the car, it became real. And that week, I quit drinking cold turkey. I quit using drugs cold turkey. Like I isolated myself for an entire year. And growing up in the Bible Belt, like I didn't know what was happening to me. It was like a massive awakening. And I remember the only person I've ever read that had a story similar to mine in his awakening experience is Eckhart Tolle, when he talks about like the colors being more vivid and everything being more bright. It's like Princeton didn't exist anymore. It was like I was in a completely different world, or operating at as I say now, a different frequency.
That's the multidimensional.
Yeah.
Man, you must have a lot to say about what's happening now, because I feel very different. It's like timelines are switching all the time.
Yeah,
the
a
frequencies
lot of things are shifting.
Do you know like the Schumann resonance and all that, this frequency of the earth? A different topic.
Yeah, we could go, we would get all into that. But after that happened, again, growing up in the Bible Belt, I didn't understand anything about spirituality or metaphysics or energy work or any of that. So I went out and I bought a King James Reference Bible and a student Bible, and then I bought a Strong's Exhaustive Concordance that broke down like the Hebrew, the Greek, the Aramaic, because it awakened this hunger to know truth, like not what men were saying, because growing up in the religious community, it's like you see the hypocrites, like I hear this preaching of this great love, but I never see it.
Yeah, no action.
And so I left religion like probably 6 weeks prior to this happening. My mom had come to me, and it was after this huge fight that had happened, and she was like, Princeton, you need to give your life to God or Jesus, or you're going to end up dead or in jail. I looked her dead in her eyes, and I said, if one more person says something to me about God or Jesus, I'm going to kill him. And I meant it. Like I had no remorse. At that point, I was so dark within myself.
Wow.
And so again, it was just that night, this culmination of all these feelings, and then that huge shift. I was in this place of complete openness. It's like I had really hit a rock bottom. But then in that rock bottom, it's like this light. You see this light shining through the darkness. And it's like I see it. And my soul was just seeking the light. Like I didn't know what to call it. It was just the feeling, the knowing, as I say now.
The knowing.
And so I started studying the Bible, but I didn't study the Bible from a religious perspective to get lost in the dogma or any of that. I studied it because it was the only book that I knew of where people had spiritual experiences. And I was searching for experiences that were similar to mine. And so...
Bingo, because I want to say, and I just told my mom on the phone the other day, I go, the crazy thing about religion, because I'm not into organized religion, I'm very spiritual. I have no judgment. It's just not for me. I don't like boundaries on anything.
Yeah.
And I think we're all doing the same thing. When I manifest, when I'm believing, when I'm giving my all and my just handing it over and saying, the universe, you got this. It's like what people do when they truly believe in their religion. They're handing it over. And it's the same behavior, just different terminology.
Yeah.
The feeling is the same. But do you think that you get divine messages? Because everything 100%. That you're saying seems like it was like a download to you. I say this because I'm in awe and I'm very inspired by you right now. I don't know how you put those pieces together at such a young age, number one, and number two, that being the time when you were in the darkest of dark. I couldn't grow out of my darkness until that darkness was no longer, it was behind me.
See, I think for me it's different. And I laugh often because I tell people darkness is my best friend. I love the darkness because it's like you realize, exactly. It's like you realize, just like in the yin and yang, how you see like in the dark, there's the light, and in the light, there's the dark.
The dark, yeah.
It's when I realized early on that, a lot of people say, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. And I said, no, true awakening is when you realize that you are the light in the tunnel. But you're seeking the light outside of you. But when you realize you are the light and you begin to embody that knowing, the darkness is there to teach you.
Yes.
And it's like floating in the darkness. And so whenever I have experiences, especially since then, what I started doing was, well, I'll explain what led to this, but studying the Bible, I'm reading all these stories, and there was a lot of symbology and connection to what I was reading. But it was when I got to the point of really studying Jesus in the Aramaic, I always tell people I'm not a Christian, but I am a disciple of the message of Jesus.
Wow.
But he taught about the kingdom, and in one of the first passages, when he's preaching, his first message was repent, for the kingdom is at hand. That word repentance in Aramaic, the Aramaic language, number one, if you read the Bible and you're reading the New Testament in any form other than the Aramaic where Jesus is teaching, there's a lot lost in translation, because in Aramaic, the language he actually spoke, one word can have 50 to 100 different meanings depending on its context, because it's an illustrative language. It's a breathed language. It's a spiritual language. And so that word repentance illustrates a coming back to, a remembering, a waking up. And so ultimately what he was saying was, wake up, remember what you are, come back, for the kingdom is here now.
Wow.
And then he would always talk about the kingdom, but in one passage he says, don't worry about what you're going to eat, what you're going to wear, where you're going to live. Don't even worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow has enough concerns of its own. Instead, seek ye first the kingdom, and all these things shall be added unto you. A few passages over, he comes back and he says, don't listen to men when they say, lo, the kingdom is here, or the kingdom is there, for I tell you, the kingdom is in you. And so fast forward his story, of course, they want to hang him on the cross and everything. And they tell him, if you just deny everything that you've taught, we'll let you live. And he was like, no. He was like, to deny that would be to deny myself, basically. You can't destroy me. So he goes to the cross. But this is what really set me on the path. I always say love is my religion because of this. He's hanging on the cross. All these people who were once with him, who loved him, turned their backs on him. They're all yelling, crucify him now. And he's hanging up there being beaten beyond recognition, all the flesh torn from his body practically, crown of thorns, nails in his wrists and his feet. He looks out over them and he says, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And I remember reading that and I broke down into tears and I said, teach me to love like that, because if I can't love like that, I don't want to live. And so from that moment, it's like I stopped seeing challenges and negative things or problems, and I started seeing opportunities to love more, opportunities to create more joy. How is this challenging me to love? How is this challenging me to be more joyful? How is this challenging me to be grateful? How is this challenging me to operate more in the fruit of the Spirit, not ego? And it just went deeper and deeper and deeper. And fast forward, because there's so many layers, and I want to honor the time, but not too long after that, I ended up meeting this girl that I worked with. She introduced me to who was her pastor at the time, and he taught a satellite extension course. He and I had a at-length conversation about the Bible, and he said, how long have you been studying this? And I said, for about a year. And he said, can I give you a test? It ended up being like an entrance exam to kind of see where my knowledge base was. And he calls me maybe 2 days later, and he says, you tested on a master's level. And he was like, things that I don't even know. To me, a lot of it seemed simple. Like, I didn't even remember most of the questions. It was just like I was going through, and it was just like, I always say the knowing was just with me. Like, okay, this is what they're saying, but this is why they were saying that. Because I'm thinking about it culturally, historically. Like, I didn't just study it religiously.
You're like putting yourself back in that, and you're like dissecting.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you're living that.
Yeah, and so it was really cool. I ended up going through that, and then ultimately, fast forward a couple years later, I ended up joining ministry and becoming a pastor, and I did that for about 5 years, but I became a pastor more like Neo in the Matrix, like I'm going to go in and teach it right. And as you can imagine, the Bible Belt, religious people, like there were a lot of people who got it, but there were a lot of people who didn't, and eventually,
that's a brave step.
I loved it. I actually loved it, because it gave me an opportunity to test myself, and it gave me an opportunity to really evaluate whether or not that was the path I was meant to be on. And after 5 years, I knew it wasn't. It was kind of a testing ground, because if you can face religious people and speak truth, you can face anybody. I'm like, I don't care. Like, religious people already think they know most of what they know because they've been taught it. And they will die on that hill. Yeah. But when you can break it down in a way to where it exposes what they don't know, and then it just leaves them to think. It's not about judging them, it's about being able to talk to them in a way that it challenges them to look inward. Because a lot of times we're trying to teach people to listen and just take what we say at face value. And it's like, no, a true conscious leader speaks in a way that it challenges people to become more introspection, because the answers for them individually are here. The goal of any leader should always be to lead people back into themselves, not to follow. Because if I can teach you to trust that, you're going to be in alignment, and everything in your life will start aligning with that. I don't want you to follow me just because I say something and it sounds good.
It's for the
you don't know
betterment
it.
of
Yeah.
people. It will change. It could change humanity. I know it's these small things, but I always say I want to change the world. And it's through these things, these ways, these behaviors, this leadership in which you can do that. You're an alchemizer. There's no doubt about that. You take a feeling, you take what that energy is, and you create something beautiful out of it.
Yeah.
And so why not teach people how to do that too for themselves?
Yeah.
Because so many people, and I don't know. I don't know sometimes if it's something that you can teach to the level of, say, where you are at. I think that you were placed here to help people grow, definitely, but to have the gift that you have isn't something I think you can teach. It is, again, what believing in yourself and whatever that passion and that is, because everybody's meant to do something. They just have to listen and know themselves. And to love yourself, you have to know yourself. And to know yourself, you have to forgive yourself. To forgive yourself, you've got to go through the hard shit of all the things and everything that has either happened to you. I always say it happened for me, not to me.
Right.
So that's pretty incredible just to see that you took that, even knowing that you at one point were so dead set against religion. Okay.
But, when I stepped down, the message that came to me was, you can't use the system to change the system. You must become something new. And so that's when I stepped down. I started studying metaphysics, energy work, meditation, and I really started challenging my intuition at that time because I was already so tuned in, which I would later come to understand why that was. But I would literally, when I found Barnes & Noble, because back then, I was probably 30 minutes outside of the city in a small town, one stoplight town, or as I say, two blink town. You blink once, you're halfway through it. You blink twice, you're through it. But I remember going to Barnes & Noble and seeing all these selections of books, and I didn't have a lot of money at this time. And so I was like, you mean to tell me I can come here and I can just sit here all day and I can just read? Like, that was like such a gift. And so what I would do, I wouldn't just go in and say, okay, I'm looking for this book or this book. Like, I would find the aisle, so like spiritual development or whatever, and I would close my eyes and I would walk and I would feel where I would go like this first and feel where my body said stop, and then I would stop, and then I would touch the book, and then I would just walk until I felt stop. And then I would set the intention of what I was seeking, and then every time, it never failed. When I pulled the book out and I would open it, and then I would open my eyes and I would start reading, and it would always be exactly what I was seeking. And so then that would be my book I would read. Sometimes I would read 5 to 15 hours a day.
That is incredible.
Yeah. I
don't know how you have the discipline for that. I wish I did, because I love reading. I love the knowledge. I know a lot about I know a little about a lot of things.
Yeah.
But where I start to want to master is those quantum physics and all these consciousness and frequency and that kind of thing. But to read it, how were you reading that much per day?
Well, because I was so hungry. And I say back then it was differently. I deeply empathize with people who are awakening in this dispensation of time, because back then there was no social media.
Yeah.
Facebook had come out, but it was only for college kids. Unless you had a college account, you couldn't log into it.
Wow.
YouTube was just beginning, so it wasn't what it is now. No Google like that. You had AOL. So when I got started, I didn't have all the distractions. I didn't have all the voices in my head because the constant doom scrolling and all this and that. So life was just peaceful. Like, I would go on long walks in nature, and I even had a walking stick, that I would meditate. I would go walking through the woods. My idea of fun was getting lost in the woods and finding my way out.
I can so resonate with that. I don't know about getting lost. Well, no, I can.
As a child, you didn't have all the thoughts of, because I was still young in that sense. Like, but even as a kid, I would do that. And if my parents knew half the stuff that I did without them knowing, like.
And you're a father, so that's how I am. I'm not like a helicopter parent by any means, but oh my gosh, I know where my son is all the time. My parents never knew where I was. Up until I was like 15, 16, where they really needed to know where I was. But for that different time, especially small town, so. Okay, so Barnes and Noble was an outlet for you.
Yeah.
What would you do with all that creative? I mean, you're storing all this knowledge, but didn't you ever feel like you needed to get it out?
Well, at the same time, when this was happening, I was sharing everything. Like, I would take notes, like whatever spoke to me. I mean, and there were times where I might go and I might read one line and be meditating on that one line for the whole week, sometimes 2 weeks, depending on what that message was.
Wow.
And what it pulled out of me. And so because I didn't go back to a church initially, like I never was seeking a man to give me any information. It was like I would journal a lot and messages would just come to me. I started having visions really early, and like I would see things and then I could tell you what was going to happen and how it was going to happen, and then it would happen. And I was so tuned in, and I learned really early. That's why I always tell people, I think at my failed suicide attempt, I think I had a Kundalini awakening. It was just like everything opened up at once because it was just this huge shift. And even now, I'm so detached from this world, and people are like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, I'm unattached. Like,
I call it like I'm in my fairy tale head all the time because I stay away from anything that is that low vibration because that will not get me where I need to be. But yeah, what do you mean by detached?
Like just from the world in general. It's like even the idea, like most people, like you were saying earlier, trying to teach this stuff to most people, for some people it's just going to kind of go over their heads, but it's only because they're still so attached to the idea of self or the masks that they're wearing that it's hard to detach from that because it's like a death. It really is like a death of self. And I think until you've gone through enough dark nights of the soul or you're just already open, you won't really get it. But for me, when the reason there's no war within is because I'm not attached to Princeton. To me, Princeton is just an idea. And that's something I teach all the time. Like, you have an idea of Princeton. Everybody has an idea. My parents, the world, anybody who encounters me. But Princeton is just an idea. Princeton is who I say Princeton is going to be.
Yeah.
And so I'm not even attached to this. It's like an earth suit. Like I tell my daughter, my 4-year-old, I was telling her, we were laying in bed the other day, and I said, babe, the same way an astronaut, when they go into outer space, they need a suit to operate in that space. We have these bodies that we give names that allow us to operate in the world. And I said, but we're not the bodies. We are the spirit. We are the power of the body. And so I don't see myself as this human. I see myself as spirit. And you hear people say we're spiritual beings having a human experience, but do you truly believe that?
And do you understand it?
Right.
Because it took me forever. And I always tell the people closest to me where I'm at, I would hear things like that and it wouldn't make sense. Now I'm at a place where I'm like, I understand what it's like to be some people that are like saying, well, that's easier said than done, but it really, if you just surrender and say, and you have an intent, I think those two things can make beautiful possibilities.
But the thing people often say is when you say surrender, they say, I know what you mean, but I just struggle with surrender. And I'll tell them, you don't actually struggle with surrender. You surrender every day. You surrender to fear. You surrender to worry. You surrender to doubt. You surrender to scarcity. You surrender to negative belief systems. You are surrendering every day. The problem is you're surrendering things that bring you down and bring you into a lower frequency so you can only perceive things in that frequency. But what I want to challenge you to do is surrender to what brings more love in your life, what brings more peace in your life, what brings more joy in your life, what brings more openness and vulnerability to your life. Surrender to letting go of the relationships that don't serve you anymore. Surrender to letting go of the jobs and applications that you operate in every single day.
Yes.
Surrender to letting go of the programs that make you think negatively. Surrender to meditation. Surrender to getting around positive people who are going to challenge your perspective. Surrender to things that are going to challenge you to evolve and grow, and to alchemize, like you said. Like, for me, like my brand, Evolved Mastery, the colors are black, white, and gold, and they represent the darkness that you traverse in order to find the light, in order to turn the things that you experience in the darkness into pure gold to add value to the world. And so the triangle represents mind, body, soul. And I always say,
that's incredible.
Unless you evolve that, that's where people struggle. They're out of alignment. But go ahead.
Well, there's steps you have to take too. you don't just get there overnight.
No.
You have to make a conscious decision every single day. For me, even if I wake up in a stressed mood, I have to, and it's like a muscle memory. It's practice until it becomes a habit.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took me a long time to even stop a negative thought right in its tracks and alchemize that into something that benefits me.
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to be going, I'm in corporate. Do I want to be going to work every day? No, but I'm utilizing those skills that I'm learning and I'm applying them to what I can do. And there's always, excuse me, there's always a way for you to take something, and there's always that opportunity.
Yeah.
It's a choice. And so in a roundabout way, like you always say, like to honor yourself, to truly give into that love, that light. And I always say you have to listen to what you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So many people don't even listen to the feeling that they get when they get invited to go out with a certain person or do a certain thing. And if it's not resonating with you, it's not inspiring you, if it's not charging you up in all the right ways, then it's probably not worth your time.
Yeah. But the reason that happens is because most people wear masks, and so I always teach the problem with masks, the reason why it's a challenge to evolve when you've grown in this world where you got a mask for friends, a mask for family, a mask for colleagues, a mask for the guy that you like, a mask for the guy that you're entertaining, a mask for the girl, or vice versa. You create masks for everything. And every time you create a mask, you create a different personality. You create a different personality. You fragment yourself more and more and more and more and more.
Oh my
and
gosh.
so when you are first awakening, you may awaken to a certain level of a mask that you dissolve, but then you go to step into something new and then another mask is there. And it's like and so it feels like this constant kind of like this ebb and
Yes.
flow, this in and out of
Yes.
darkness. And for some people, it's like back to back to back to back. Like for me, I'm not sure if you're into like life path numbers and all that.
Oh,
but
I'm into all of it.
all right, so I'm a master number 11, so master teacher. Like I know exactly why I'm here. I'm a manifesting generator in human design, 6'2",
That's crazy.
split definition. But I recognize for me as a master number, as an 11,
Yeah,
when
11's like the top dog.
yeah, we go through test after test, and I got to a point where I was like, when will this stop? Like I'm so tired of being tested. Like I just felt like I needed to breathe. It was like I was in a wind tunnel. But now it's like I said, I'm so in love with my life because it's like I came out of the other side of that, and it had just stripped away so much, and all the masks, all the facades. So I love when I'm exposed to a version of Princeton that I gave an identity to, because I'm so detached, I don't hold it, so I can see it and I'll be like, no, that's not an alignment. That's not who I am. That's not what I am. And I can immediately let it go. But you're right, it is practice, and it takes time. But the more you learn to love yourself, because a lot of people don't even truly understand what it means to love themselves, even in practicing self-love. It's like, but do you truly understand
That's
love?
what I always say this. You have to love yourself, but to love yourself, you have to know yourself. And to know yourself, you got to
Yeah.
Like it's a process. So many people, I know this through and through because I didn't know myself until I knew myself, until I started saying no to the things that I didn't want to do, and until I started putting boundaries on people that I love very much. And it hurt me to see them hurt because the part of me that they got used to, the person that they fell in love with, the perception of the person who they want me to be, isn't me. I have to be authentic in all aspects of my life. And to do that, I have to start putting boundaries and not doing the things that don't serve me and just completely honoring myself. And a lot of people take offense to that. But me, I'm standing from the point of I want everybody to love themselves because that's what makes me happy. Do what makes you happy.
Right.
I have no need to control anybody. That is just not an ounce a part of me.
But the ego seeks to control. And so people who haven't
Why do you think
learned
that
that,
is?
because the ego the ego wants to protect itself. It wants to it's like that
To
fight or
validate
flight. It's
that they're
always
right.
seeking validation. And so again, going back to the stories we create, the facades we wear, everybody has a story of you. So whether we're talking family or friends, significant others, past relationship, they all have a story. of you, and they attached a meaning of themselves to that story, which allows them to either see themselves as a victor or a victim or some other role in the movie of your life. And so without that, it's like, because they had to create a facade to fit into that because of the ego, they have to stay attached to that because it gives them a sense of identity or idea of self.
It's control over even the idea of themselves. Yeah. Wow.
But when you start letting go, it's like it's the ultimate form of love to say, I love you enough to let you go. Like, I really don't care. With all the love in me, I really don't care what you think. I really don't care how you feel, because at the end of the day, your feelings are a product of your thought. And if your thoughts are making you feel that negatively, then you must go in. I am not responsible for your emotions or your feelings. I am not responsible for your state.
Yes.
You are. And from this day, my boundary is, if you feel some type of way towards me that is negative, but all I am saying to you is I love you. If you cannot meet me in that space, I draw a line here and say we can just love each other from a distance, and that's okay. I don't care who you are. You can be my child.
Yeah.
Because even my children don't belong to me. I was used to bring together a conduit of a vessel that spirit could enter into this world. And I've learned just as much from them as they do from me.
Yes.
But they do not belong to me. And there may be points, even though we have great relationship, but there may be points even in parental and child experiences where that child may go far left or far right. And you have to be able to let them go. You know, and that's something I've told my kids since they were young. There's going to be moments in your life where you want to make a decision that I might not agree with. But if you feel it with everything in your being that this decision you have to make, then you got to make that decision. It doesn't matter what I think, because life is going to teach you more than I can.
Yes. Oh, if everybody would just take that and use that in every relationship that they have. And yeah, it's the more I love myself, the more I honor who that is or is not, whatever this is at the moment. It's crazy how you can see how many other people do have needs out of you, and that, again, just kind of deters me even more. When I started going through my boundary phase, I noticed, like either family would attach more, or it got really heavy for a little bit. And I had to question, I started gaslighting myself. Like, am I crazy? Am I doing this? Am I the one being the turbulent person when I'm just trying to do what's best for me to be my utmost happiest person I could be, and the most loving, the most authentic? And so it's interesting that you understand. I don't hear many men speak of this outside of, do you have a YouTube channel? Is that, like, are you a YouTuber?
I have some videos on there. I have a podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's Evolved Mastery. But I'm getting ready to start a new podcast. It's called Beyond the Veil.
It's going to be so good.
I'm excited for that one. But I also have 3 books. I just finished writing my 3rd book. And there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff. You can Google my name. It has built-in SEO. Princeton Clark.
Did you get that? Princeton Clark. Yeah,
you can Google my name. There's a lot of interviews that I've been on. And, it's something that I get all the time. But I always say, like I said, I'm in a space in my life where I truly love my life. Like, even opening up. I've been single for like 2.5 years now, and finally opening up to dating again. And I'm just like, I'm in such a peaceful place. And I'm like, I know what I want. Like, unless we can meet consciously and really come together in a we, us, our, not a me, my, and I, like really create a vision. Like, I want a soul connection beyond word. Like, that's top of priority in any of my spaces, whether we're talking work or personal.
Yes.
Like, it has to be a soul connection. I'm done doing things just to do it. I'm not coming to your event just because you asked me to come, like.
You start really, again, I hate to keep using the word honor, but honoring your time.
Yeah.
Because time is, it's a different kind of measurement system that I'm not sure I totally believe. But
it's an illusion.
We're here,
Let's just say it. Time is an illusion.
Yes, and I've never understood time ever since I was little. It's just, time was not my thing for me. But I don't even know where I was going with that. Yes, time is an illusion, although we're almost out of it.
Yeah.
So it's not quite an illusion today.
Yeah.
But,
we can continue the conversation though. But I knew when Andy said what type of host you were and what you were looking for. I was like, I don't know. Like, I was thinking about it. I was like, I don't know if we can get all that into like one episode. We could nutshell it down. what's brought to this point. But I think,
I don't even know what I don't know.
Yeah.
What else are you holding from me? Come on
all
now.
right, so like I said, I have 3 books. I've worked with some of the best in the industry, coaching, speaking, podcasting, all of that stuff. But, I had someone ask me the other day, they said, why did you choose coaching and speaking as your profession? And I told them, I didn't choose coaching and speaking as my profession. I chose love as my profession. Coaching and speaking are just doorways in which I walk through. And
Tools.
yeah, that's it. Every gift that we have, whether I'm doing photography or videography or graphic design or helping my clients with branding work or helping them develop their voice, like,
Oh my gosh, yes.
I am a multi-potentialite, so there's no limit to the different doors that I can walk through to shine my light. But the problem is the world is looking for a persona.
Oh my gosh. When I started this podcast journey, I didn't watch podcasts. I didn't listen to podcasts. It's nothing that I was pursuing. My intent was not that. And I would struggle to tell the vision of how I was going to get out in the world because I've gone through some things that I could help teach. How to get over XYZ. I don't know what it's the name of the podcast studio, so I just had to call that out because I'm like looking at the sign. But it's like, it's a lifestyle. There's so much. I didn't want it just to be a podcast. It's like an experience. It's like the life experience. It's like how you teach. It's how you can use all these tools through music, reading, writing, communicating, leading, and you're doing all those things in all the forums that you're provided and given through the universe. So that's very unique. I love that. I've always said that once you find your passion, go with that and the rest will follow. Don't narrow it down to such a finite. That just takes the magic out of the journey. Like, why not just go with what feels right, go with your passion, what sparks you, take what you've gone through, use it for good, and you'll end up where you need to be.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I went to this lady who did like numerology reports where she could show like incarnation, your life and then your exit. And she was like, when she was done, she had a program. And so she put all your information in and then it would just pull all your numbers, everything. And, some people may take this with a grain of salt, but for me, it was so funny because I told you how my journey, like I knew what I was here for, and I knew that love was my religion and that love would be the thing that I would filter the rest of everything through for the rest of my life. Well, she said, I've never seen a report like this. She was like, this is so interesting. She said, based on your numbers, you incarnated from love to grow through an experience, to find that love again, to bring that love to the world, to leave at a higher level of love. And she was like, your entire path is just love.
Whoa.
And so it goes to the fact or to the effect of owning what I've experienced and why I'm so grateful, because it's like I couldn't have known the essence of my light without experiencing the depths of my darkness. And so
Amen
I'm like,
to that.
it was all a part of my path. It was all a part of my purpose. My pain was preparation for why I'm here. And my soul was strong enough to get through it. And there may be people out in podcast land right now listening to this podcast, and you may be saying, why have I been through this? Why have I been struggling? Why have people walked away from me? Why is every opportunity falling apart? Wherever you may be, mentally, emotionally, there may be challenges that you're experiencing in abundance. But I want to challenge you to pause for a moment. And I want you to look back and I want you to realize that you have already overcome 100% of the things you thought you wouldn't overcome. And that's a testament to how powerful your spirit actually is. And if you could struggle through the pain to even still get to this point, imagine how powerful you really are. If you could really just own that and even speak that over yourself. Just start. One thing you can do every day, speak over yourself. I am powerful beyond measure. I am unlimited, and I am capable of creating whatever it is that is in my soul to divinely create. And then sit with that statement. Write that down. Go back if you got to rewind it. Write it down. Sit with it every day. Reach out to me if you need to talk to someone. But you are powerful. Some of us are incarnated into this world, and we've overcome things that some people never make it through. And with every one thing that you have experienced, there's at least 1 million people out there struggling with just one of those things. So take the handcuffs off, take the masks off, open all doors to all possibilities, because at any given time, there's an infinite number of possibilities in front of you. Every thought, every action, every word is moving you, ushering your spirit into one of those infinite number of possibilities. You are really unlimited, but you need to start thinking and releasing what creates the limit, the fear, the doubt, the worry, the second guessing, the comparison syndrome, the imposter syndrome. Stop with all of that, because you are uniquely designed. You are an original blueprint. There never has been, nor will there ever be another version of you as powerful as you are. And that's something I teach all my clients, is that once you start making the decision to love you and you own your originality and you own the fact that you are evolving every day, if you give yourself permission to, the doors will begin to open, the love will begin to flow, and you'll realize that there is nothing else in this world more powerful than the most powerful version of you. And the journey begins from there, because now you get to discover just what that means.
Well, Princeton, I am, for the first time ever, speechless. I think it's safe to say I don't want to end on anything but that. That was so beautifully stated. Where can they find you?
Everything on social media at Princeton Clark. Like I said, you can also Google me and all my information. It'll take you to my website, princetonclark.com. All my links are there, blog, books, podcasts, everything. So that'd probably be the best way to do it.
It's really a good name, too. Princeton Clark. Like, that's destined for amazingness.
Yeah.
Okay, y'all. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. Thank you. I could not have imagined a better guest, a surprise guest, the first time doing this than you. And again, surrendering to the process, and this blew my mind out of the water. And I feel like we have an episode 2, 3, 4, and 5 behind us, or in front of us.
Definitely. I feel that too.
Okay, y'all. Thank you. And that's it.